I hope none of you have been exposed to the view that it's a strange local thing to be a philosopher. Because believe me, there are thousands of them. Well, hundreds anyway. And they're not well paid, but they do a job. Yeah, and they're also interesting to talk to. It means that there is perhaps one ambition that people that I work with here, that we work with here, tend not to have, which divides us perhaps from many lawyers, and it's it creates a little bit of a comprehension gap, which is that I can't speak for everybody, but I, and I think many people who I work with, don't think of ourselves as agitators or reformers for anything. I mean, I just don't think I'm qualified to be an agitator or reformer. What do I know about? Let's say, have I ever done the groundwork necessary to know whether the social security rates should be higher or lower, whether marginal rate of income tax in this country is too low? No, these are questions that you should ask somebody with some information. And I, as a philosopher, don't have information. It's not what I do, and I can't remember it when I read it, because my brain is so overdeveloped in its concern with timeless questions that don't go away, and so underdeveloped in respect of questions like which government will win the next election. And lawyers actually have not an overdevelopment in the opposite direction, but a more even development of their brains. So I'm like the London taxi driver who can remember all the streets but can't remember where he left his coat, because there's a bit of the brain that's overused. Well, that happens with philosophers generally. We have a philosophical attitude to life. We think that the problems that other professionals deal with will only last 100 years. And that's not a long time. Now, the problems that interest me have lasted thousands of years. Now, of course, they come up again and again in topical context. That makes us not just philosophers, but philosophers of law, because we see them again. Oh no, here they are again. It was the Tories last time, now it's the Labour Party. Same mistakes, same confusions, same bullshit. And so we have a certain, there is that, and that's a philosophical weakness. That we can't really get that involved in agitation or reform, because it all seems remarkably predictable and more of the same stuff that poor old Aristotle had to deal with. Yeah. I remember feeling great identification when I heard a sort of report of a, no doubt, apocryphal philosophical exchange, where somebody was complaining, I think in a book review, allegedly, that a certain problem, that such and such hadn't made much progress with a certain problem. And indeed, nobody had made much progress with this problem since Plato. And an objector said, well, Plato was that clever? That is a philosopher's mentality. So we're not going to make that much progress. We're going to think about these problems. We're going to. The aim is not really to be transformative in your own lifetime, but to make small steps with difficult problems and see if you can make slight improvements on what has been achieved. So I think all of that is temperamental, and it's not temperamental in a way that's local to Oxford. It's temperamental in a way that's characteristic of philosophy. And there are just some people who either don't want to be philosophers, or because that's not their temperament, or who do want to be philosophers but aren't in an environment that's hospitable to them being it, or have another idea about what philosophers should be, because even academics are intolerant and totalitarian about other people's work and want to preach to each other about what they should be doing. And so, there's a certain amount of that goes on. So all of this, I think, leads me to think that in the end, Oxford Jurisprudence is a creation of those who suspect it of being more corporate than it is, because it has a history, or jurisprudence in Oxford has a history. I don't want to say Oxford jurisprudence has a history. I'm sceptical about its existence. But jurisprudence in Oxford has a history, and it's relatively easy here to be a philosopher in the law faculty. It's a comfortable environment to do that. There are other people to talk to. And the subject is healthy, and we have great, great students for the same reason, I hope, that Hart had them. Not, I hope, because we're cheap or because we have nice buildings, but because there are good there's good supervision, there are good people to talk to. We have a good, thriving community. We have a wonderful discussion group. I hope these are the reasons why jurisprudence in Oxford continues to grow. But they're probably also the reasons why it's imagined sometimes to be something other than it is, to be a doctrine or a position or a school of thought. And I hope that once those of you who are new are part of it, you will feel part of it, but you won't feel therefore to be part of any doctrine or position or school of thought, that you'll just feel that you're at liberty to be philosophical. And that reminds me of another apocryphal story, a Ronnie Dworkin one, reporting a conversation on the bus, a couple of women talking about personal problems, and one of them protests that she can't stop worrying about it late at night, and the other says, well, you should be more philosophical, don't think about it at all. Which Ronnie tells that one, it's a salutary reminder. But I hope that you'll feel that the main benefit of being here and being in the discussion group especially, which is particularly good for this, is that you're free to learn to be, or to be, if you already are, philosophical about law, with philosophical temperament, and not to feel that you must always be justifying yourself or explaining yourself if that's what you want to do, because there will be people who want to do it too. I hope that's the way it'll feel to you, and I hope that beyond that it'll feel just very, very pluralistic and rich with opportunities to disagree. I also hope that you don't have the tree-hugging experiences of really worrying about your work that I think certainly afflicted me as a research student. Of course, all research students have this to an extent. For me, it was certainly a very alarming transition, moving from being, I was trained first as a lawyer, moving from being a lawyer to a philosopher. So I hope it doesn't feel the same way to you, although I can say it works out in the end. So come to the Jurisprudence discussion group, enjoy talking to other people who are philosophically inclined about law. Don't feel ashamed of that. Present your positions and have them knocked out. Good.
Yeah, I just want to second that last bit. If it feels dreadful, don't worry too much. Those of you who are just embarking on a DPhil, you've got to do a qualifying test at the end of your third term.
He's the dean.
So you submit an essay and a proposal for your DPhil, and you don't know quite what your subject is yet. We still make you do this. And when I did this, I had a qualifying test interview with John Finnis and Andre Marmor. He was a really sharp guy. So I write this essay totally rubbishing something that Ronald Dworkin had said. And I go to this qualifying test interview, and I figure I'm pretty okay, because those people doing the interview must totally disagree with Dworkin. And it was excruciating. I remember perspiration dropping. I wear glasses, and perspiration was dropping on my glasses. I had to take off my glasses and wipe, because they just, wow, they just weren't prepared to put up with any of this nonsense that I'd written. It was really painful.
But mine too, I should say. I had a qualifying test with John Finnis and Robert Dworkin. And I was working on a topic that neither of them had really worked on. I couldn't tell what line might be presented to me. But I do remember that I was in there for 4 hours. I was sent out an hour before the end, so that they could have a conversation about how long they could reasonably continue. It was totally awful.
We're not trying. We're not trying to.
You'll love it.